This is what makes women's basketball so fire.
I mean, I just love playing the game. It's fun.
To see how far the game has grown has been amazing.
They say nobody watching. That's a lot of people. That's a lot of people in there, Martin.
Yeah, I think I've always just been able to get downhill.
When recess came, like, I had my sneakers on.
I hit them with a hezzy. After that, they quit.
What's up, everybody? As you can tell, I'm clearly not on my A game today. What's up, everybody? Welcome back to the Protect Our Queens podcast, presented by Basketball Society. With me, as always, my brother in Christ, my partner in women's basketball crime, Martin Sories. How you doing, man?
Not too bad. Little nasally, little allergies. You know, allergy season right around the corner. Feels like it started early this year. The pollen is creeping up, but otherwise, just another day, man. Another Monday morning here to talk some women's basketball. Good to have anyone here who's watching. This is a live show, of course, so you can always watch with us and join our conversations here live. And you should definitely subscribe to Basketball Society right here on YouTube, and you won't miss out when we go live. But if you're watching on the playback, appreciate you as well. The real question, Marcus, is how are you feeling as a South Carolina fan today? I mean, I know the answer, but has to be asked.
I know it's not. I'm sure it's not up there. I woke up this morning. It was raining. Gray clouds. It's the gloomy day. Summarizes how my heart feels. I'm doing a lot better now, obviously, than I was right after the game. I did tell you, it was like when they got up to like the score was like they were up 15, and you texted me, it was like, it's not looking good, and I was like, I'm going to turn this off. I did not turn the game off. I stuck it through. I watched the entire game. I'm feeling better. I mean, I wanted us to win, obviously. We weren't the better team. I didn't expect us to get blown off the court, though. I didn't think that was going to happen. I knew there was a reality, obviously, that exists where we weren't going to win, but to lose by, 30 almost, or somewhere around there? I think we lost by 23, 24. That was not on the bingo card, for sure. So I'm hurting. I did contemplate calling off work today for emotional distress to take a mental health day. But the kids need me. So I'm gonna go to work because the kids need me.
I'm abandon what pays you. That's what I had to do this morning. Always keep the paycheck first.
Yeah, it is payday today, so that actually did make me feel a little bit better. Yeah, I did get paid this morning.
That's the Lord smiling on you.
Yeah, it was a little nice. It was a little nice.
Dressing your gloom.
Jeez, man. Yeah. So we are going to talk about this. I'm going to have to sit here and suffer through it and relive this. But before we do that, we're going to start obviously on the winning side of things, just like we did last year. We're going to talk about UConn first. And in order to do that, we first need to actually go back to a conversation we had on the show last week going into this game. Do y'all think SEC's offensive inconsistencies can come to bite them? I do.
I only think it's going to hurt them against UConn. I think UConn is and that's why in their last game, they got blown off the floor by UConn because that is a high-powered offensive team. Right. Texas is not a high-powered offensive team, so I think they're going to be fine in this game. I think it's going to be competitive, but just like Indiana and Maryland and Duke, they're gonna beat them, and they know they can beat them because they're SEC. They know each other. I think Texas has a little bit of momentum they're riding right now, and I think that could help them. I think, sometimes that experience playing against a team can help. And when the stakes get higher, sometimes you're able to rise above. Madison Booker could turn out to be the best player on the floor. And like I said, that's the best chance they have is if she is that, but not in this game. This is a game where you can be offensively deficient and still win because Texas isn't a high-powered offensive team. High-powered offense.
So Texas is not on a high-powered offensive team. I got myself into some hot water last week after that show, which we'll talk about in a second later on. We get to the South Carolina piece, but I guess the question is just really simple. Martin Sories, how did UConn dominate South Carolina and to their 12th national championship on Sunday?
With a high-powered offense. That's how they dominated them for the second time this season. That I think the first game they started running it up on them a little earlier, like in the first half. But yeah, another blowout. And uh I don't know. I mean, I think UConn ended up showing and proving that their big three at full strength together was too much for anybody to handle. Sarah Strong being Sarah Strong, AZ Fudd, she was really the key. That I think that might have been the best game she's played in a UConn jersey. And for AZ to show up and be and I mean she's been locked in all postseason and been playing really well. And with AZ being at that level, and then of course Paige, that was too much for anybody to handle, including South Carolina. Because, and I mean, I know I focus on offense a lot. UConn did some great things defensively as well. Even in the UCLA game, like we saw their defensive greatness on display as well. It wasn't just about the offense, but man, offensively, those three, it's too much. And the common denominator is that all three of them can shoot the basketball at a high level. All three of them are also very smart on offense and on defense. I mean, that's UConn as a whole, just a smart team, plays smart basketball. But the skill set, like the skill sets of their big three, the combination of them was just too much. All three of them can shoot at all three levels. So you can play pitch ahead game, pick and pop game, dribble handoff game with any combination of the three of them. I just think UConn hit their stride ever since they dominated South Carolina in that last regular season game. And they said it on the broadcast, after that game when they blew out South Carolina, Gino came in the locker room and he expected celebration and he just saw them locked in, business as usual. And Paige was the one who said, like, that win wasn't like as much validation for them as it was motivation. And they got their first whiff of what they felt like they could be. And they rode that out through the end, man. I mean, they found their ultimate identity. And again, just their big three outscored South Carolina. So that's the big story, I think, in why they dominated them. And we'll talk about the South Carolina side. But man, when you have three players that are that skilled, that smart, and with that rangy shooting ability between the three of them, that just too much. And then you throw in the experience of Paige, even the experience of AZ, and then you've got Gino as your coach, and then that system too. I just think I hope you really. I mean, I know it was tough for you, but I had a couple clips to maybe show, but I won't get too coach breakdowny on here. We'll just thug it out and talk. But I hope. I know it might be tough, but I hope you could appreciate just the kind of actions UConn is running that gets them the efficient looks that they get. Like it's not just great players out there. They have a great system. They've been running it for a long time. Motion, dribble drive, dribble handoff. They run so much stuff that forces you to have to guard them. And when you have three players that are that talented and that skilled and that smart, that's a lot to handle. And it was too much to handle for anybody, including South Carolina.
Yeah, it's tough to put into words when you're so frustrated in the moment, like what's going wrong, because like everything went wrong. And again, like you said, we'll talk about that in a second. So those guys who are watching, we do appreciate you guys for tapping in. Please feel sure to hit the comments up with any thoughts or questions you might have as we're going through here talking about UConn dominating South Carolina. I think the thing that stuck out to me, and I even saw Nick mention it as well on Twitter, is UConn did a great job of taking advantage of the mismatches that they had when they had them, right? AZ did a great job of attacking Malaysia for Wiley.
Was that a mismatch though?
Yes. Malaysia looked Malaysia.
She was not good. She was not good.
Normally, Malaysia at her best, no. But Malaysia on Sunday, I don't know who that was. I think there was this one. This. I'll be honest. This is when I just lost it. There was a possession where Malaysia got a steal, and they're going back the other way, and then instantly AZ just steals it right back and then gets the layup. I'm like, okay, like
I mean, she picked Malaysia twice, but I mean, coming into the game, you're not going to say that's a mismatch.
No, I'm not going to say it's into the game, but it looked like a mismatch in the game. Like it looked like AZ was the more experienced player, which she is. It looked like, Malaysia didn't really know what to do. Sarah Strong caused problems for everybody. And I think, and I texted you this after the game because it just hit me. Like I saw a tweet after Juju won National Player of the Year. I saw a tweet where there's like a very short list of underclassmen who have won National Player of the Year, and Juju became I think the 6th or the 7th person. Sarah Strong probably gonna be the National Player of the Year next year, bro. They're gonna have AZ still. If I'm not mistaken, Khalees, this is her year where she's gonna be a freshman as well. Like Sarah Strong is just really good. I know that you and I started talking about how they were trying to, explain to Sarah how good she was. And you watch that game and she's all over the place. She's scoring on all 3 levels. She's playing good defense. She's crashing boards. She's just causing problems for everybody. She got Joyce flustered, and Joyce was coming into the game feeling good. She had Chloe Kitts flustered, and Chloe Kitts was coming into the game on a bit of a high. It was just a mess all around offensively. And again, I know that you said that you like to talk about offense, but I really think that this was more of a testament to how good UConn is defensively than it was how good they are offensively. Because we knew that they were good offensively, right? We knew how good they can all, how UConn can be when when Paige and AZ and Sarah are all clicking, right? Even when the extras of Caitlin Chen and Audrey Griffin and all those girls, when they're all clicking offensively, we've seen how good they can be. This was probably the best defensive game we've seen from them. And it came at the right time. They had a defensive game plan. It worked. And offensively, South Carolina they couldn't counter what they were being given defensively. They couldn't figure out something that worked, right? You come out of the first half down 5, you end up going into the second half down 10, and it just kept snowballing. There was never a point. There was a little bit of a time there in the beginning where I felt good because South Carolina was keeping up. Like you mentioned, UConn started running the score up a bit earlier in the first game. But it was a tight game. There's going to be a nice little back and forth here. And it just no, UConn kept finding a way to continue their momentum, especially defensively. And I think that's really the thing was they found a defensive rhythm very early on, and they stuck through it throughout. And that's ultimately what led to them being able to blow us out the way that they did.
Yeah. I mean, keeping them under 60 points is really something. And I do think that UConn's defense was very good, but I and again, because I watch defense and offense, but my eye is naturally more keen to the offensive side of the ball, and I just can't help but look at South Carolina's offense just not putting pressure on UConn's defense. Not to say they made it easy on them, and not to discredit or not give credit to UConn's defense because it was very good, but sometimes it just looked easy to guard. I'm sorry. It didn't look hard to guard. You're not going into action. I mean, how many possessions did we see? And then not that it was a lot of possessions, but the possessions when South Carolina needed a bucket. And I've talked about this so many times with this team, with knowing who your go-to player is, having players who can just go get a bucket and play off script. Just, going high-low and throwing it inside and expecting your size to just overpower people. That can get easy to guard. We saw enough possessions where Chloe Kitts taking 5+ dribbles, going 1-on-1. Raven Johnson taking 5+ dribbles, just and nothing against them because they're trying to make something happen. But individually, South Carolina, outside of, in my opinion, Malaysia Fulwiley, South Carolina they're not made up of individuals who can go make something happen off the dribble and off the bounce. And that's where I've struggled with this team at times, and even with their system, even though we trust Dawn, I have struggled because that system doesn't necessarily encourage like going to get a bucket for guards or necessarily for bigs. I mean, they don't have true scorers, and it's what I love about the team. Like I've said, their depth will save them. It got them to the national championship. Like they were here. But when you go up against a team that has 2-3 straight up bucket getters, and their system is that sound, like it's one thing. Like if they played against LSU, they would have beaten LSU because LSU doesn't have the system. They've got bucket getters. Guess what? They don't have the system to execute against a team like South Carolina. South Carolina would have beaten LSU. UConn has the rare, unique, special combination of bucket getters that also run a system that helps them to get buckets. it kind of gets that simple.
UConn is a team that I think all season you and I talked about last week how we expected them to be back in the national championship game this season, and throughout the course of the season, I mean, they definitely showed flashes of it. Again, I think the thing that was just so overwhelming for me is watching. It didn't look hard. Like there was no struggle. You know what I mean? Like it didn't look offensively, defensively, like whatever advanced stat, whatever metric, whatever, just like watching the game thing you want to look at, it didn't look like there was a scenario where there was ever a time where UConn looked like they were struggling. Like from the moment the game started, like UConn walked onto the floor, and if you just picked up a random stranger and said, "Watch this basketball game," and you tell me which one of these two teams are the defending national champion, they would probably think it was UConn. It just looked like that's how great they looked. That's how dominant they looked. And I mean, even down to there was a stretch of time, and Malaysia talked about this in her interview after the game when in the locker room. There was a stretch of time when South Carolina did string together a number of defensive stops, but they couldn't get anything going on the offensive side of the ball. They couldn't get anything going when they were able to get those stops offensively. And again, whether you want to attribute that to the fact that South Carolina doesn't have any bucket getters, whether you want to attribute that to the fact that, you know, there's too much ISO ball and too many dribbles being taken by various players, what have you, at the end of the day, that still signals to me that UConn played great defense in this game, and they did something defensively that South Carolina couldn't figure out, whatever it was, whether it was switching, whether it was like man, zone, whatever it was that UConn was showing defensively throughout the course of the game. South Carolina just could not figure out a way to figure it out. And for me, I think that's the part that was most interesting, right? Is you come into this game and you expect it to be a good game. You expect it to be a close game. You expect it to be a back and forth matchup. And UConn just was like, no, like we're good. Like there was not, I don't think there wasn't a point in that game where I think you looked at UConn and thought they're not winning this game. Like that's how good they looked. That's how sound they looked. And to your point, it speaks to the system that has worked for all these years and has delivered a 12th championship to them. Like it's worked, and it'll continue as long as they have those three. Obviously Paige won't be there, but as long as they have, you know, Sarah Strong, as long as they have AZ and some other bucket getter in there, like,
yeah, I mean, yeah,
I don't know.
Like, listen, you don't replace a Paige Beckers.
You can't
What
replace
Paige does as the lead guard at the point of attack. You're not just going to replace that. So UConn will look different next year. You know, Sarah and AZ, that's great. You said, I guess your early pick for National Player of the Year is Sarah. I would table that for now. Like, I get it. I get giving her credit, and you're feeling a certain way because she just dominated your team. She's going to have a great year next year. I don't think we have to go right to National Player of the Year. There are other great players too.
There are,
and again, don't forget, UConn will be good. I don't know if they'll be this good next year. Like Khalees Fisher is coming in. We've had her on the show. She's a very good guard. She'll probably be good right away. She's going to be a freshman. She's not going to be Paige Beckers, year one, week one. Like, so expect a drop off. We'll see how much they're playing through Sarah Strong and how much she is ready to start being a dominant individual force for that team. But yeah, this was a unique group, man. This was a unique combination of those three talents, Paige, AZ, and Sarah. That's rare. And like, you're not just going to get, you're not going to get the same look. That offense, that system is so perfect for Paige Beckers. It's great for AZ. It's great for Sarah, but like working off a player like Paige, her length is very deceptive. And everyone knows how great she is in the mid-range, but like I wish we could spend time just looking at possessions and actually looking at the greatness of it, because how she operates in spaces on the floor makes it really tough to guard her. The sets that they go to where she can come off a quick action screen or a go cut, or I'm not sorry.
No,
I'm going
go ahead.
too detailed into the, but no, they it's perfect for Paige, man. That system is perfect. And, we talked about South Carolina's guards. I just think, like, and I said I was watching the game with my brother-in-law, and his wife is a Division I coach, and we're watching the game. And when Malaysia came in at some point in the second half, the game was out of reach at this point. But Malaysia's in, and she was kind of just, again, trying to make something happen. Like, and she did. She scored a couple. She hit a runner. She had a nut. So, like, I was like, look at Malaysia. She's just like, let me just go get it now. Let me stop thinking and just go get it. I was like, that's what she should be given the green light to do at all times. And it's frustrating because I feel like when you say like she's out there and of course she didn't play well, and you said like she looked like she didn't know what she was doing. Yeah, because she doesn't know what to do. She doesn't know if she should just go out there and hoop, or if she should go out there and like run the plays, be unselfish, be like, I'm seeing a player with all this talent out there not really knowing what to do. And there's only one thing to do. Go out there and hoop and be yourself. You're in the national championship game. Put all that stuff aside, regardless of what Dawn is saying or what Jolette is saying or whatever the game plan is or whatever. You're Malaysia Full Wiley. If you go out there and score 8 straight points, if you hit a couple threes or whatever, they're not going to say anything to you. That's the ultimate conflict as a scorer, Marcus, within a system and playing for a coach that is disciplined and that doesn't just let you kind of do whatever you want. You go in and you're kind of second guessing yourself at times because you're like, oh, like I could hit this shot, I could take this, but that's not really what the coach wants me to do. Let me reverse it. Let me go to the play. It's the ultimate conflict as a player, as a talented player who has a scoring mentality. And I just feel like in that game, you saw a product of Malaysia having so much experience, not really being given the true green light to come in and just go off. And some have questioned her IQ. Some have questioned, like, can you really let her play that way? Is she really? I'm like, dude, in a game like that, are you really worried about that? You're down by 20. You need points. She's your best scorer. How is she not out there just being given? And look, it's college basketball. I played college basketball. I know there are limits. You very rarely are you just given the green light to just go do whatever you want. But if you ask Steph Curry about his college experience and why he was able to flourish, it's because that coach put the ball in his hands and made sure the team understood, like, hey, look for him. We're playing around this guy. He is special. He is unique. Play around him. no coincidence. Malaysia is signed to the Curry brand. Like she's a special player, man. Like you can't treat her like she's Raven Johnson or nothing against Raven. Not that she's not special in her own way, but Malaysia is a scorer. She's a scorer. She's the most unique scorer you have. And like you said, if someone's watching that game, just a casual off the street who doesn't know anyone on either team, they wouldn't even know what Malaysia really is. And I'm not putting that on Dawn specifically. I'm not saying it's something I've been frustrated with from year one, from right away with Malaysia. It's what had me a little frustrated with Zaya Cook on South Carolina. Just feeling like we're not really getting the whole experience that they can offer. And in a game like that, I think it really hurt them.
So there's a couple comments in here talking about South Carolina, but before we get into that, let's do a quick ad break.
Women's basketball fans, we embrace you here on the Protect Our Queens podcast. We want you to join our conversations, so make sure you subscribe to Basketball Society right here on YouTube, and you can join in on our weekly episodes live, and you won't miss out on any of our content.
All right. What's going on?
All right. Stupid technology. Okay, so the first comment that caught my eye was this one here. It says South Carolina Gamecocks' problem all season has been their offense, not their defense. They have a great defense, but the offense has been the problem. I agree. So last week, into the Texas game, I went on a rant about how I felt that the guards had not been playing up to the level that we've accustomed to seeing them play, whether it's Malaysia, whether it was Raven, whether it was Tahina, Tessa. I posted that clip on TikTok and on Instagram. I had a bunch of South Carolina fans after the game flooding my mentions, telling me that I'm not a real fan and I'm all these other things. What's funny about that is I actually saw a clip of Gino talking about UConn. And one of the things it was like he was talking about the way he coaches. And what he said is he expects his players every time in practice to play up here in practice. And the reason why is because if you play up here consistently in practice, there might be a drop off in the game, but the drop off would still be considerably high than if you're practicing down here. So when I go on rants and I say that I need to see more from Malaysia, I need to see more from Raven, I need to see more from Tahina and Tessa and whatever, it's not because I don't have confidence in the team. It's because what we can't do is skate on by with 11 points from Chloe Kitts one night and then 23 points from Bree Hall one night and then 22 from Malaysia Fawali another night and just a bunch of offensive inconsistency and expect to go up into a game against a team like UConn and expect to win. I'm talking about dominate because I acknowledge on the show, I did not expect this team to dominate this season at all. I expect them to look a lot better than they did in the tournament. So how do you think, Martin, South Carolina will be able to bounce back heading into next season? They always figure out a way to do it, obviously. It's why they're one of the most successful programs of the last couple seasons. But how do you think they will bounce back to hopefully get back to this place next year?
Yeah, I mean, they're going to have to see what Raven is doing because now apparently she's up in the air about what she's doing coming back or going to the draft. So that's going to impact things. They lose Sanaya. They lose Bree Hall. I did see Dawn after the game commenting on people were asking her about the transfer portal and what might she be doing to retool the roster. And she's going to give politically correct answers, of course, but she mentioned experience. Well, she mentioned experience and she said young guard. So, I mean, I think they're going to be in that portal for sure. They've been to the Final Four 5 straight years.
Yep.
3 out of those 5 years, they were in the national championship game. I mean, how they bounce back, we will see based on, again, what the roster is looking like. I look forward to seeing that. I don't think Dawn is going to be, I mean, we'll see. We'll see how they might pivot, change a little bit, tweak, whatever. But when you've been to the Final 4 or 5 straight years, what you're doing is working. And you've bounced back, so to speak, every time. And again, 3 out of the 5, they were in the national championship and they obviously won those 3. So I mean, I do think like, and I know there was a lot of talk about the parity in women's college basketball this year, which there was, even though we still ended up with a 1 seed versus a 2 seed. You know, we've still had no less than a 3 seed win the national title. So it's still about the elite programs. But I do think we're going into even more of an era of parity with the portal and with players moving around and just the talent getting better. The number 1 player in the country, Aaliyah Chavez, signed to Oklahoma, not UConn or South Carolina or LSU or Baylor or UCLA. She's going to Oklahoma. So like the allegiances are changing, are shifting. Everyone's not just going to the 1 school or to the 2 schools. So I think parity is going to open up a little bit more. But I mean, look, they're going to have you have Malaysia and Joyce Edwards now going forward as your duo. I expect Malaysia to now get off the bench and be a starter from here on out. That needs to happen. That's part of the process, I think. Make her a starter, Dawn. It's time. And her and Joyce are going to be the cornerstones going forward. I fully expect them to retool. You know, not to say you can replace a Bree Hall, but I know they can find another 3-and-D wing. I know they'll find a more good, productive post players. So I think, I mean, I think they'll bounce back like they usually do. They're going to be right back. They'll be a top 5 team next year. I mean, how they do it will be dependent on what their roster's looking like.
So I think it's time we need to. I never want to sound like I'm questioning the great Don Staley.
Mm-hmm.
It's time the system changes. I think it's time. I really do. I think it's time the system changes. You and I said this a couple months ago. Camila Cardoso's not here anymore. Like we don't have the 6'7". We don't have the 6'7" size advantage. We do have, I think, the tallest player on the roster right now is Adele Tack. She's 6'5". We didn't see a lot from Adele this season. I mean, she's coming off the bench. I think she played in 20 some odd games. You know, if you want to compare that to like other bigs that we've had, Camilla, Aaliyah, Asia, whatever, their freshman years are a little bit more impactful than that. So like, I can't imagine, unless there's just a massive amount of growth between now and the beginning of next season, I can't possibly imagine that the game plan going into next season is to maintain the same feed the post, have the size advantage, and play through Adele. I can't imagine, especially not when you have a player as box office and as talented as Malaysia Fulwiley on the roster. Like I fully expect there to be a shift in the way that South Carolina plays basketball. I think that's the only way. I think that's the only way that they bounce back. Now, you have gone on me several times over the course of the show, whether it's with South Carolina, whether it's with Vegas, about me being incessantly hard on my favorite players and my favorite teams, right? And so it's very hard, and it seemed very what's the word? Like I'm crying over spilled milk at the fact that my favorite women's college basketball team, who has been to 5 straight Final Fours and been in 3 of those national championships and won 2 of them, it seems like I'm crying over spilled milk at the idea that we lost a national championship game. No, it's not working anymore. Like, unless you have that, Lauren Betts, like if we had Lauren Betts, we probably would have won the national championship because it would have worked, right? We don't have that. So there needs to be a change. And when you have a player in Malaysia Fulwiley who can score, you have to surround a team around her that is going to play to her strengths. You have to surround her with players who can shoot the basketball. You have to surround her with, wings and forwards and bigs who can run the floor in transition, who can, go out there and be effective because that she likes to push the pace and run the floor. And that's usually when she's at her best with all the, I call her showtime when we're talking back and forth, because that's what it is. It's showtime when she's out, open floor, nothing but the net in front of her. That that's what we're getting. There has to be a shift. I have seen people talk about the prospect of Tanaya Latson, who's in the transfer portal currently coming to South Carolina. There is the Raven Johnson connection. Raven Johnson did say after the game that she has made a decision one way or another about whether she's coming back or whether she's going to the draft.
And she said the game affected her decision. So that, read between the lines, that only means that she's now more considering coming back.
Absolutely. 100%. Nick is praying for me. I appreciate you, Nick. Thanks for tapping in, and to everyone else who's tapping in, we appreciate you. I think I think, and this is the last thing I'll say about changing the system. I think if with Malaysia Fawali potentially being, not even potentially, I mean, at this point, she's the best player on the team. If you're going to be the best player on the team, you have to play through the best player on your team. And I would be really interested to see what a Malaysia Fawali Tanaya Latson backcourt looks like. I think it'd be super effective. And that would likely also bring back Raven Johnson. We know that there's a connection there. And I told you that Raven Johnson, this time last year was our best perimeter defender. And I believe that if Raven Johnson gets to play her final year in college with a friend, a childhood friend in Tanaya Latson, maybe she'll be more motivated to go out there and get back to being the best perimeter defender on the team. But my biggest takeaway from Sunday is this has to change. We're done with the unless you can get a 6'7" recruit to recruit to South Carolina or to commit to South Carolina, and then you go back to that, that's fine. But if that's not what's happening, and you have the players that you have on this roster, Joyce Edwards and like we got to change it up a bit. I don't want to keep seeing Chloe Kitts playing iso ball on the wing. I don't want to see that anymore. I need something different. I need more. I respect, I appreciate Chloe Kitts, but I don't want to have any more stretches of a basketball season where Chloe Kitts is our best player. That's not going to result in winning a championship. No offense to Chloe Kitts, but that's just not.
Yeah, and she's made great strides. Like she got so much better. Like at times where she did start to look like their best player, it was impressive, and they needed that from her. They needed different people to step up and look like their best player at times. So going off of the changing the system thing, it's not just Malaysia, it's Joyce too, bro. You got to think about it. Like I heard Raven had said something I saw after the game. They were asking her about Joyce, like being hard on herself. And Raven said that they speak life into her. They remind her that the great bigs of the past that came before her, Camilla, Aaliyah, Asia, they all went through it. Joyce is different from all of them, bro. Joyce right now is more of a point forward. She's not a seal big. She's not sealing you. She's not back to the basket big. She is a hybrid post. She is not your typical post player, and she's 6'1" or 6. She's like 6 foot is 6'1". She's not 6'3" or 6'4". She's an undersized big and forward. She's super versatile. Like you see how the kind of stuff she was doing. They had her bringing the ball up top, going off the dribble. Like she could go ISO on the wing eventually. She's gonna get really good.
Makes me smile.
Her and Malaysia are very unique talents. And so I'm agreeing with you. Like, it's not just Malaysia. I think Dawn has to look at her two best players now going forward, Malaysia and Joyce. They are dynamic players who might need a little more of a dynamic, free-flowing system to really highlight what they can do. And I think it will be interesting going forward to see the roster construction and the play style with because Joyce is very unique, man. She's very dynamic. She's not just your typical post player. And you say the same about not your typical guard. I think the Tanaya Latson thing is interesting. I don't think that would, and I'm glad that you pointed out, I didn't know she's childhood friends with Raven, so maybe that would be a factor for Raven to want to come back. But I think, like, as much as I love I have loved the depth chart of South Carolina. They've got, it's 4 or 5 guards. They've got 4 or 5 posts. Everybody can play. Everybody can contribute. Different leading scorer in every game in the NCAA tournament. They have the gamut of guards. They have the gamut of posts, right? And that's cool. But maybe it's time to more lean into a specific backcourt. If they were to get a Tanaya Latson, I want to see Malaysia and Tanaya Latson. I mean, Raven Johnson could contribute, but I don't think that would be smart on her part to come back if Tanaya Latson is going. That takes away from her being, she might have to fight for starter minutes. I mean, Dawn might give it to her off respect, but Malaysia and Tanaya should be the starting backcourt if Tanaya Latson is there. Raven Johnson should be coming off the bench.
I agree.
that may not be great for her stock, so to speak. So I having that combination of, and Tessa Johnson's still there. So where is Raven going to find minutes if you've got those kind of players on the roster? So I don't know about that. But I know that would be a big splash that South Carolina could use to go from a Raven Johnson to a Tanaya Latson. That makes you way more of an offensive team. So again, they're going to be in that portal. I don't know if they're going to swing for like a big name or a big scorer like that. I get the sense they're going to go for like just good players that are experienced that fit their system and their model. But yeah, we'll see if Dawn agrees with you, man. We'll see. I tend to think 5 straight years in the Final Four can make you a little rightfully stubborn.
The Buffalo Bills went to 4 straight Super Bowls in the 90s. They lost all of them. Like again, I get it, right? 5 straight Final Fours. You go to national championship 3 times. You win 2 of them. I'm not trying to sound ungrateful, but what I'm also acknowledging is when you look across the landscape, as you alluded to, players aren't just UConn, South Carolina. Like that's not what's happening. Like players are choosing to go to other programs across the country for various reasons. And so the talent is being dispersed. We all give Dawn credit for the fact that really before she got there, South Carolina, the big thing that South Carolina wasn't able to do was keep their own players. They've done that a lot now since she's been there, right? So you don't have to worry about that component of it. And we acknowledge and we appreciate and we love that about Dawn. But this isn't working. Like it's not working. It's not. And when I mean it's not working, I'm not saying it's not resulting in winning, because it's resulting in winning. But when I think about working, I think about if I look at this basketball team and I'm watching them, whether it's at the beginning of the season, the middle of the season, the conference tournament, or March Madness, do they look effective? Do they look like what do the players they have? You and I used to joke about this all the time in our previous existence, right? KYP, know your personnel. Does the personnel that you have on your roster, is that going to be conducive to make this system run effectively? And the answer right now is no, it's not. The players we have on this roster right now are not conducive for a deep seal, feed the post, crash the boards hard type of style of offense. It's not. I think the defense, as the comments alluded to earlier, I think the defense has never really been much of a concern this season. It's been the offense. And when you have a player in Malaysia Wiley, when you have a player in Joyce Edwards, even a player like Tessa Johnson, who I forgot, but I didn't even think about, right? And how she factors into all of this, right? Like you have to play to their strengths. You have to. We've seen Joyce Edwards take over basketball games and win us games just off the strength of how good she is and what she's able to do already as a freshman. We've seen now in 2 years of Malaysia Wiley her do the same thing. She was the MVP of the SEC tournament last season. Like we've seen how good she can be when you release those restrictions. So like at some point, a decision has to be made. Either we are going to choose to adapt just a little bit and tweak our philosophy just a little bit, because the goal is still to hang banners in South Carolina, or we're just going to do what we've been doing all this time. And we're only going to recruit players and only going to go after players that are going to fit that. And if that's the decision, that's fine. But you are then sacrificing and putting a cap on the potential of Joyce Edwards and Malaysia Wiley. If the decision is just going to be, we're just going to play a feed the post offense and we're just going to go out there and get some bigs, because Malaysia and Joyce bring more to the table than just overhead passes or bounce passes into the post, letting the big get busy and then running back on defense. They're more than that. They deserve the opportunity to showcase just how good they are outside of on the fast break. It should be more than that. So I think the system should be changed. I'm not saying it needs to be a makeover, but it needs to, the system for next season. And as long as Malaysia and Joyce are on the roster, needs to be a system that is conducive to playing to their strengths so that they can be the best versions of themselves. Because the two of them at their best, surrounded by players who complement them well, can win South Carolina more national championships in the next 2 years than a system where we're just going to stick with what we know that's been working for the last 10 years and kind of try to force a square peg into a round hole for the both of them and just make them adapt their game to that. I just, again, I don't want to sound like I'm questioning the great Dawn Staley, and I'm certainly not. But just as a fan, as a sports person we've teams go through this all the time. You win championships. The system's great, and then you have a championship performance like Sunday where you just get outplayed on both sides, and you have to make an adjustment.
Like something has to change.
It is incumbent on them to make an adjustment. It doesn't need to be drastic, but an adjustment needs to be made to prevent something like that from happening again.
Yeah, I think that's only fair. I mean, you know, even as a coach, like even when you win, you know, you'll hear coaches after a win and they're like, hey, we're on the road next week. We got to recruit. Right. Like, you know, even if you win, you're thinking about how do we improve for next year? Like that's your job as the coach. I think shooting, and I know I'm an offense guy, and you know, I scored a lot of points in my career and I believe in shooting, but and so it's something that I noticed, you know, and it stood out to me in the first game against UConn. I'm like, girls on this side can shoot. AZ Fudd comes out, hits a few threes, bang, bang. Pow Pow. I think the addition of Pow Pow these last 2 years was really telling. I think last year when I saw, I'm like, wait, they got the girl from Oregon, Pow Pow, 3-point shooter, and they had Camilla. I'm like, man, that roster's too deep. And they go undefeated, you know. Pow Pow as that 3-point specialist was such a perfect insertion into what they had last year. And I think that's one of the interesting things I'm going to be watching for to see what kind of players they go after and add is I think they could use some more shooting. Like I think their identity as a team, even if they don't just turn into a, you know, it doesn't mean they have to shoot over 25 threes a game. I'm not saying they got to go straight Mike D'Antoni style and just start playing fast and shooting threes. But just a little bit more, you know, it could be a little tweak that happens in terms of, you know, the kind of, you know, even with their bigs, like look for forwards who can shoot. Like, you know, look for forwards who can shoot. When the game started out like 11-10 and they were going back and forth and they were kind of exchanging buckets, there were like 2 or 3 possessions where like Chloe Kitts hit a jump shot. I think Sanaya Fagan hit one. Yeah. And it was like, oh, snap. Like everyone's in rhythm. People are hitting shots, you know, but that is not them. Like Sarah Strong outplayed all their post players.
Absolutely.
She hit a couple threes. She scores inside. She scores outside. She's in the mid post doing handoffs, pick and pop. Like the amount of things you can do with a player like Sarah Strong, mainly because of her shooting ability. It starts with that. She can do other things. She can go off the bat, but like when she up fakes you at the 3-point line, you've got to honor it because she can shoot that thing. So that's where I look forward to seeing if there's an adjustment with Dawn in the roster and the kind of players they go after. I just think shooting, and like you look at, started by talking about Pow Pow, she's like an outlier on that team. She's like the one, like Bree Hall can hit 3. She's a good shooter, but I feel like her role is more defined as like, you know, you said Raven was their best perimeter defender last year. I would split it between Raven and Bree Hall, like depending on who the matchup is. I think they both have shared that title and that role. You know, you saw Bree Hall was the main matchup on Paige yesterday. So, you know, again, depends on the matchup, but like Bree Hall can shoot the ball too, man. And I feel like you don't really get to see that because of the system. And so, yeah, I think Pow Pow became such the 3-point specialist, leads the country in threes, lead the country in 3-point percentage. Yeah, but you know, they ran the first play for her, stagger screen for Pow Pow off the top. She scored the first bucket, hit a 3. Yep. Right. And then throughout the game, there are times when the guards got to make plays off the bounce. That is not Pow Pow. She's not the type to hit you off side to side and make something happen off the bounce. She can, but she's more of the 3-point specialist. But this is not a 3-point specialist team. And so last year it worked perfectly. This year, I think they maybe could have started leaning into that a little bit more this year. I was looking at some numbers from past games this season. They had games where they took over 23s. They shot 10 for 28 from 3 against Oklahoma this year in January, smacked them by 30 or 40 or something. You know, there were games when they got into that kind of rhythm. I just don't think that is baked into their natural identity. And when you go up against, again, I just think UConn, there are probably other teams. South Carolina probably would have beaten UCLA. They obviously, I mean, they beat Texas. Like I told you not to even worry about that game. They're going to take care of them. USC with Juju probably would have beaten them too.
I don't know, man.
Mean, it would have been tough. That would have been tough. But Juju would have had to play outstanding, to outlast them, because they don't. The USC, I've talked about, like, they have good players, but they don't have a 2-3. They don't have a big 2 or big 3 like that. That really puts that much pressure on you offensively. I think that would have been a really good game, but I just think UConn was the unique Achilles heel for this South Carolina team that did struggle offensively a lot this year, and relied more on their defense. They could score, but against a team that can really score with individual special talents in a system that works for them, that was the ultimate Achilles heel for this South Carolina team.
Yeah, I mean, again, last thing I'll say is, to your point about Tahina, when she hit that first 3, my ears perked. I got like excited like a dog. Like my ears perked up. I was like, oh, like that's
but I was more encouraged after the next few possessions when, again, Chloe Kitts hit a long 2 jump shot.
Yeah,
I think Bree Hall hit a 3. I think, like, their first 5 or 6 possessions, the scores
were
like
very effective.
They were going back and forth, and different players were scoring. So I'm like, okay, that's good for them because everyone's getting a little touch, everyone's getting a little rhythm. But yeah, it's tough, man, when you have that kind of depth and everybody contributes. It's like either everyone's in rhythm or no one is, or even or one person is, or only 2 people are, and then it's on you to get it to those people, like go through those people, like, and it got really tough for them, not really knowing who to go to, who's our bucket getter, who can bail us out. Like, you need bailout players on your team that can just go and get a bucket. Malaysia's the only one, in my opinion, who is really like that. Joyce has proven to kind of be like that. She can bail them out offensively, but and now, we're talking about changing the system. We're not saying a bailout offense, but it's just, there's a shot clock.
There needs to be some tweaks. You need to
have a couple people who can just go get a bucket.
Yeah, there needs to be some minor adjustments. Like, let's go. I think finding a player, not to quote unquote place Tahina, but finding someone else who can be that 3-point specialist would be helpful. Like finding other players who can do some of those things. Again, not to exactly mimic what we saw 2 years ago when they won, or last season when they won the national championship, but there needs to be some minor adjustments, finding players who can better complement Joyce and Malaysia. Right, there are players on the roster who can currently do that, but there might be, whether it's Tanaya Latson, whether it's some other player in the transfer portal, there's likely another player or 2 or 3, who knows, that can come in and still help mold this team, and the identity can be adjusted. Just
last quick thought, and this is a stretch and a reach a little bit, I think, but even as people were discussing like South Carolina transfers, who's in the portal, Tanaya Latson, what if Olivia Miles were to consider South Carolina and Dawn Staley? Or maybe more importantly, what if South Carolina was to consider Olivia Miles? That, Marcus, would have to mean changing the system, because Olivia Miles is an up and down transition, push the ball point guard. She can be great in the half court too, running your offense. But when you get a point guard like Olivia Miles, you're committing to up and down, push the pace basketball. So that, I mean, I wouldn't predict that, but if that were on the table, that would suggest that Dawn is open to changing things up a bit.
Let me say this. Let's say this perfectly clear. If I open Twitter, or you text me and say Olivia Miles is a South Carolina Gamecock, I'm going to go find me some real estate in South Carolina. I'm going to go live in South Carolina for the duration of the next college season. Right. I'll tell you that much. Thank you guys, as always, for tapping in with us. We appreciate all of you guys who watched during the live show and input in the comments. We also appreciate all of you guys who are watching all the playback. Please, please, please don't forget to subscribe to Basketball Society on YouTube so you don't miss any future episodes of the Protect Our Queens podcast. And if there's a specific segment that you miss, you can also find those segments on the YouTube as well. So make sure that you are subscribed. When you finish with that, also follow us on Instagram at @ProtectOurQueens_ and on Twitter at @POQueens_. This is a full week for us this week. Obviously, the draft is next week, so we will have a show later on this week about the draft, and also another show as well talking about Notre Dame a bit. So make sure you guys are following us on all these various platforms so you can know when and where we are going live to discuss all of these things. For my guy, Martin Sories of Basketball Society, this is Marcus of the Protect Our Queens podcast signing off. Thank you guys for watching. And as always, you guys enjoy yourselves some women's basketball.